Hi, everybody, and welcome to our complimentary webinar today, brought to you in partnership with NICE, who's Auscontact's national gold sponsor. And we've got some other great partners here with us today with RingCentral. The session today is entitled How Brighter Super Future-Proofed Its Contact Centre Operations with CXone. We're really lucky to be hearing from Nisha, who we'll introduce you to in a moment. In the spirit of reconciliation, Auscontact acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes, and during that time, with the help of today's guests, we've got Anthony Brown, who's the Director at Solution Consulting with NICE. We have Nisha Varma, who is our contact centre leader from Brighter Super. And we also have Melina Musamici, who is the Enterprise Account Executive with RingCentral. We're hoping that today's session will actually spark some interest and share and showcase the journey that Brighter Super has been on, and actually get you to engage in the conversation with us and provide you with some ideas to take back to your respective businesses. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar to help round it out and answer any questions that you might have. So I'm Fran Southwood. I'm the CEO of Auscontact, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. We really want you to interact with us, so let's maximise the benefit that actually you take away with you. So you'll see at the bottom of your screen there, you've got a Q&A and a chat toggle. If you have any commentary or questions, please use those buttons on the control panel. You can ask questions or make any comments for any of the speakers as we work through it. As I said, we will have a Q&A session at the end. However, if you've got some comments or questions about things that are being talked about by any of the speakers that are time sensitive, put them on there and I'll jump in and actually ask them while we're going. If you're anything like me though, I actually will think of a fantastic question, and if I don't write it down, I will actually forget, and it would have been the best question. So make sure you jot down any of those questions that you have into that Q&A, and we'll just make sure we get to them at the end. If you are listening through headphones or speakers and have any issues with your connection, note the raise hand button on the control panel. If you click onto that, one of the Auscontact team will jump in and see if they can help you. Alternatively, you can use the registration confirmation email, and in there it's got all of the relevant phone numbers and access codes. We're all pretty familiar with this format now, so I'm sure I won't have to ask you twice to ask questions. Okay, we might actually get started. Anthony, I'm going to hand straight over to you so we can hear a little bit more about the process and where we started before we hear from the rest of the panel. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Fran. And I think I can really resonate with the best question that you forget. You know, on the pre-call I mentioned, I seem to have a memory like a goldfish. Sometimes I have those great questions. If I don't get it out straight away, it definitely disappears from my mind until, I don't know, maybe later on today, and then it pops back in my head. That was it. So yeah, please do store up those questions, put them in the chat Q&A as Fran has suggested, because we've got a wonderful customer with us today to talk to. Now, as you mentioned, Fran, my role is the Director of Solution Consulting for NICE here in Australia, and we're in a very fortunate position that we've had huge amounts of success over the last few years, racking up. Last count I had was about 226 customers in Australia and New Zealand alone over the last few years. You know, from some very, very small organizations with, let's say less than 10 agents to our largest live customers, 3,000 plus, and some larger ones going live this year as well. So we've got, I've been with the organization about 18 months now, but the grayness in my beard indicates I've been in this industry for a lot longer, so maybe 20 years or so in the industry. So I've seen a lot of different things. I've traveled the world and I've seen some wonderful transformations along the way. And I'm fortunate enough to look after a team in NICE whose job it is to match solutions from our amazingly broad contact center portfolio to our customers' business problems. And among those customers, we have Nisha from Brighter Super, and of course our partners at RingCentral. And Melina, I'm sure you'll say a few words in a few moments. But in the first instance, perhaps Melina, do you want to just tell us about RingCentral and the role you play in this solution and the value you bring to Brighter Super.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. I'm part of the RingCentral team here in Australia. A bit like Anthony, we have worked together in the past, but I'm a bit older than you, sir. So I've got over 30 years experience in the industry. I might as well be proud for a change, showing my age. But look, RingCentral's a business communications vendor. So we have a UCaaS portfolio, which Brighter Super use, as well as our contact centre, which is powered by our CXone NICE. So RingCentral have been around for over 23 years. We've got the one platform which does phone, message, video, and analytics, and then that and our back office platform, our UCaaS platform, then very tightly integrates with the CXone platform, which Brighter Super do use. So it's been a journey, being with RingCentral here in Australia for now 5.5 years, and I'm team lead for the enterprise team here, which has been a great amount of growth we've had here in Australia now. It's close to 50 staff. With Brighter Super, with Nisha, we met over 3 years ago and started our journey when they were looking at moving from an on-prem to a cloud-based solution. And Nisha will share the story because it's an interesting one. It's changed a lot from when they first joined with RingCentral and signed up with us, which was when they were a humble 50-user organisation, 50-staff organisation, to one which is close to 350 staff today. So it's a great story, which I'm sure everyone will enjoy today. Thanks, Anthony.
Fabulous. And Nisha, so we've really bigged you up so far on this, so no pressure. Tell us about your role and tell us about Brighter Super.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you very much for having me. And it's such a privilege to talk about the amazing journey we've had with RingCentral and NICE. So Brighter Super is a superannuation fund. And as Melina said earlier on, we were a very small fund. We were a closed fund, primarily, servicing Queensland local government employees. It was primarily a Queensland-based fund. And our contact center was very small. We had about 12 or 15 agents in the contact center. And from there, the business had the vision, and I've been in the team leader role for the last 5 years, and I've been in the organization for 8 years now. So it's been an amazing journey for myself as a person, but from a telephony platform perspective, it's been amazing. So going back, a few years ago, Brighter Super knew that there was a vision for growth. We used to be called LGI Super at the time, but there were a few mergers and acquisitions lined up. And generally what happens with mergers and acquisitions is that the member base is double. And when the member base doubles, we need the contact center to be able to cope with that call volumes as well. At the time, going back 3 years ago, we had a telephony platform that was on-prem, and we had a lot of challenges with the telephony platform. Some of them were, as an example, we couldn't self-serve a lot. If we needed to get something done, we had to reach out to our vendors, and they would take some time to get it sorted. So there was nothing that was available for us to be able to change instantly. So I guess we've come a long way. At the time, we wanted to, bring on board a technology that was scalable, that was easy to use, and a vendor that we can have a very good relationship and partnership with, because we knew that this journey was going to be ongoing for quite some time. We wanted to go ahead with something very basic, but then something that we can build on. So as I'm going back to the challenges, the reporting was a challenge with the previous telephony platform. Being able to make changes to the IVR was difficult. Onboarding agents was challenging. So again, we needed a telephony platform that was really, really simple to use. That's how we went into the market, and RingCentral came on board with us and we implemented the NICE CXone platform for the contact center. And I think it's been an amazing journey since.
Fabulous. You've certainly touched on some amazing parts of the journey there. Now, you mentioned this all started a few years ago. So you got all this done and nailed before the pandemic, is that right?
Well, there were talks going, there were talks going on about it before the pandemic. And if you ask me now, Anthony, for sure, I so wish we had completed the implementation prior. Unfortunately, we couldn't. The implementation was completed in November 2020. But some of the challenges, again, because we were using on-prem, it was very difficult for us to go to work from home. We had to literally take our hard phones home and then connect it to our cables, and all of that was very difficult. And so now when I think about it, absolutely, I so wish we were on this platform sooner. But at the end of the day, we're here, which is great.
It's fabulous. It's been, we've spoken to a number of organizations, or a lot of organizations, I think, over the last years in similar kind of situations to this, and that sort of driver that we all went through during that stage has caused organizations, and to your point earlier on, a lot of organizations were transitioning, but initially it was just keep the lights on, like keep the calls going through, and there was a bedding down process whereby a lot of organizations didn't necessarily really push to achieve all their customer experience objectives in that early phases. But now we're back into, let's call it, business as usual mode. There's certainly a lot more focus on that, especially given the economic headwinds, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But Melina, perhaps you can talk about, what, from your perspective and your team's perspective, what were the challenges and what the sort of the important things about, implementing a transformation like this during a pandemic, when I'm guessing you couldn't all just fly off up to Brisbane to help and be on site?
Look, I suppose lucky enough we could do it all remotely. Obviously with RingCentral also providing video as part of our solution. So luckily we did it all remotely. Plus there was a lot of change in terms of new staff that was obviously coming on board. So as part of our training, and our training for staff, for users, our agents, and obviously administration, etc. We recorded all of that and was able to share that. So as new staff came on board, they had access to the customised training we did, which made their transition new staff members across easier. As well as that, we have our RingCentral University, which then allows them to also go online and be able to go through our university and be able to grab documentation and obviously videos, etc. to help them. So yeah, it was a challenge. It was also a lot of fun. I think Nisha will agree. We've been lucky enough to grow our team in Australia. We haven't had any staff turnover, surprisingly, for this industry. So therefore, Nisha's had the same staff, and in terms of implementation, project management, sales, all consistency through the whole process, which does make it easier. We're like a family in the end now, the way in which we work. So
we'll touch on that in a moment. Actually, one of the things that I mentioned this previously, and it's something I believe in passionately, is that Melina, you and I can sit here and say we have the greatest technology on this planet, and many analysts agree with us, which is awesome. But it doesn't matter a damn if you don't have the right people in place from the implementation side, from the customer side, the champion side, to make that successful. And the analogy I sometimes will draw is like good old photography. You can go down to the high street retailer and buy the most expensive, the best camera you can, and you can still cut the heads off people and take pictures of feet and take terrible photos. But a good photographer will take an amazing photo with a $2 happy snap at a wedding camera. So the people are such a critical element. And so perhaps Nisha, do you want to make some comments from your side about how you manage a transformation like that?
Sorry, just one second. One second, there was a question there about training. When we do our training, we actually use the actual configuration of the setup of the environment. So for Bright Super, when we're giving training, we're using the reports that are in place for them, the data that is in the environment. So it's not just a generic training course. It's live, it's interactive, and obviously, in relation to the way in which it's set up for them. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, Melina, that must be much more effective. I know, obviously, COVID meant we had to think differently about training as well, right?
Yeah.
And Nisha, I know you're going to talk a little bit about the growth that you've seen people-wise, but to actually have those resources there and ready, actually as a customised feature in a remote world, must be much easier, Nisha, when you then saw people onboarded, like as part of that onboarding program.
Yeah, Absolutely. So first, touching base on what Anthony just commented around, having the right people do the right job. So I think we had the right team. We still continue to do that. From the business side, we had our head of contact center who was very clear on what outcomes were required. And when we were implementing this, RingCentral worked with us very closely. There was nothing difficult, it was just, okay, how are we going to make this happen? So this is what the customer needs. Let's make this happen. So we work together as a team, and that continues on. Going back to training, sometimes I understand. I mean, I've worked in the contact center industry for 25 years, and from a consultant's perspective, training is so important. But what I have noticed is anyone who can browse through internet can use CXone. It's very easy. The way we have implemented it is we have integrated CXone with Salesforce, which is our CRM. And that was one of our requirements. So we wanted to ensure that all customer or member interactions, we call it, we wanted it to be recorded in Salesforce. So we use the RingCentral Salesforce agent within Salesforce to answer phone calls. We also, when a call drops in, a case in Salesforce gets automatically created for us. And at the end of the call, the call notes, the call recording, if there was a post-call survey that a member completed after the call, all of that data gets automatically pushed into the case by RingCentral. So we actually built that integration because that was how we wanted it to be. And actually helps us because as an organization, because we are in the superannuation industry, we have to be very compliant. So when there is a complaint or a dispute, all we have to do is look for that particular case in Salesforce, and we've got all the information that we need about that interaction in that case. So I guess the key part here is the partnership that we have, and how we built it based on how we wanted it to be, and how easy it is to use. So I think those are some of the highlights through that process. Yes.
Fabulous, thank you. Hopefully that answers the questions on the training and around how the critical role that the people play. Obviously, this rolling out during the pandemic and how we train, how we implement. As we touched on a moment ago, some of the I guess the initial objectives on the CX journey, which probably it sounds like in your case the discussion started pre kind of pandemic, so you would have had some other objectives at the time, which probably changed during the course of that implementation. Now, you touched on reporting being a challenge for you previously. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works for you now? Is it meeting your expectations in terms of what you can do with it? Because we all know with reports, as a vendor, I can give you 5 reports, I can give you 50 reports, I can give you 5,000 reports. It will not be the report that you want, I promise. That's just the way reporting works. So tell us about how that's working out for you.
Yeah, sure. I know we've talked about this before, Anthony, and I would still say the same thing. Reporting is amazing. And the reason why I say that is because you're right. There are millions of pre-built reports available for us to use in the platform. But the best thing about that is, the platform itself is that we can generate our own report. Based on the fields that we need to see in the report. Again, it's so easy because each page has a help link, which directly takes us to a resource page. So if I'm running a report and if I need fields to be put into the report, I can self-serve myself. I don't have to reach out to anybody to help me create the reports. So when my leader, he is not sure about some stats and he wants to go, okay, Nish, can we just run a report on X, Y, and Z? And I'll be like, yep, too easy. We can figure it out. And we just run the report. So it's as simple as that. So I agree with you, Anthony. There are multiple reports available. So there are pre-built reports. There are data download reports. There are report templates available. And then we can create reports from scratch from those templates as well. And the best thing is the help or the resource page actually tells you what that particular report does, where it sources the data from, how soon or how quick the data is refreshed. So sometimes when I run the report, it doesn't look right. And I go, okay, well, this report doesn't refresh until after every 6 hours. So there you go. That's the reason why I can't see the data, what I'm looking for. So it's quite self-explanatory and easy to use.
For the benefit of the recording, there are not millions of pre-book reports, but there are.
I'm just exaggerating. Yeah, there are lots.
We like to make sure that obviously there are the reports that answer the most common business questions, which organizations face to get going, and we always know that it's important to be able to pull those out. Now, you mentioned obviously about data refresh. What about real-time reporting and dashboarding as well? How are you using those?
Yeah, so dashboard, because we do have, our organization merged recently and went through an acquisition as well. Currently, we've got multiple queues in the IVR. So we'd like to kind of build dashboards around that. Again, I can actually create my own dashboards and then I can share it with my team. Each individual team leader can have their own dashboard depending upon what they would like to see. You can create dashboards based on, the queue counter, as in how many calls are coming in, the grade of service, you can have the agents on the dashboard as well, which I like to see so that I know who's logged in, who's logged out, what code they're sitting at. And I can see that the dashboard has evolved quite a bit since we launched it. We only had few options or few widgets, for example, but now we've got lots more that we can incorporate in the dashboard. So I can see that it's also evolving at the moment. Is that correct, Anthony?
Yeah, I think we touched on this when we spoke previously as well, that you might not see it yet, but in a couple of weeks you're going to see a whole load more. So that's one of the beautiful things about, I guess, the cloud solutions, where as we have our 3 major releases a year and then lots of updates throughout the course of the year as well, but the 3 major releases in the summer release as Northern Hemisphere parlance, there's a whole series of new dashboard widgets coming through the second half of this year as well. So a lot of great things in there. Now, notice there is a question in there. Fran, do you want to touch on that now? So you said you wanted to
I was just going to ask Nish if there's a question here from Aileen in relation to, you talked before about your integration with Salesforce and how it's then pushing into your CRM. Are you doing the same with your emails? So, your email traffic, is that? Yeah.
Very good question. Yeah, we're going to get there. Everyone's thinking ahead. We might as well answer that question now, Anthony.
Sure. Yeah, if you're comfortable to, absolutely. Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah. So when we launched, when we decided to go ahead with the CXone platform, we wanted to start off with very basic because we were evolving as an organization as well. So we didn't want to go ahead with all the bells and whistles. So we wanted to stabilize in the voice channel. But our vision as a business is to be omni-channel for our members, because every member is different and we want to be able to, allow the member to communicate in whichever channel they prefer to. So yes, emails at the moment, they're not integrated through CXone, but there is a plan to do that as well. So there is a plan to integrate Outlook into Salesforce, and from there, obviously, it will be integrated into RingCentral, the CXone platform, which means that rather than working, the way I look at it is an email will be assigned to a consultant, just like a call is assigned to a consultant. So email will be thrown to them as a work item or an action item. So what that will do is that will enhance the, reporting capabilities in that channel. It will allow us to respond back to members. We will know exactly how many emails are in the queue. We can manage, agent performance, agents who are sitting in the email queue, we can manage their performance. We can look at the average handling time for the email channels, etc. So right now, we're not live with that, but I can very comfortably say that we have tested it in the test environment. And whenever, as an organization, we are ready to go live with it, it's just a matter of, making it available into production. That's all.
Might just dovetail onto that with the follow-up question as well, actually, in the context of the solution has a number of different approaches and ways of integrating not just to Salesforce, but other CRMs on the market as well, be it Dynamics and the other leading players. There's about 13 different CRMs we can integrate to in a very open platform. We are actually in the process of changing the way we integrate as well. So we used to use one method, and there's a new version that's out now for Dynamics and the Salesforce integration. The latest release goes live in a couple of weeks, in fact, actually. So they are options available to us, and they allow us to approach it in whichever way is most appropriate for the organization. So in some organizations, and perhaps this is where the key of this question comes, they might be bringing some of the digital interactions into Salesforce first. But when you do that, you don't get necessarily the full orchestration capability of all the customer experience, embedding in post-call surveys all in a single platform. You're creating a parallel sort of routing technology and parallel routing strategy, and it's difficult to workforce manage those, which we'll come on to shortly as well, actually, Nisha. Whereas we can, handle all the routing and have that all written into Salesforce, memorialized into Salesforce, both on email, on WhatsApp, on whatever channel it is that you bring into the environment. So there have been historically some, not so much technical challenges, but challenges on organizations trying to make a decision about what they're going to do in which platform when doing those integrations. And I think that's where, with this, there are lots of options, and people get cross with us as solutions people going, well, it depends as the answer, because invariably, and the root of my team's job is to ultimately get to what is the business problem we're trying to solve and what is the most appropriate way of solving that. And that's where working with the business and Nisha's team, and working with Melina and her team around how we solve the customer's business problem is the easier part. Sorry, the harder part. The easier part is the actual technical integration of, well, it depends. There's lots of different ways of doing it. So I'm not sure whether that fully answers the question, Christina, but hopefully you understand there are many different options and many different ways of cracking that particular nut, for sure. Just
adding on to that, from a business perspective, I think the key takeaway for me was to really, as Anthony said, it's so important to understand what our pain points are to begin with, and then to also have a vision of where we want to be. What is this going to look like in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months time, so that once we've clarified from a business perspective what we need, I think the easy part is just the implementation. I think understanding the problem and knowing what we actually need is what's more important and key aspect.
Awesome. Now there's one or two other questions on there we'll come back to some time. We're going to come on to some of the other features in a moment around Stephanie, your question in particular, and the anonymous attendee I'll get to in a moment. So we talked a little bit about reporting, Nisha, but one of the other key things that we've been known for historically in NICE, rather than just the CXone platform, I guess, is the quality monitoring side of things. And I mentioned earlier on, we're fortunate enough to have an incredibly broad portfolio, which covers everything from all of the digital channels. There's 30+ digital channels, from WhatsApp, Line, Apple Business Chat, all the rest of it being brought in, orchestrated, all the way through to the virtual agents, self-service components, real-time interaction guidance for agents, which we'll touch on a bit later as well. But also the final pillar that we often talk about is we call it the sort of closed loop, or the customer feedback components, performance management. So all of the workforce management, the quality monitoring, voice of the customer, the components you touched on a moment ago, Nisha. But that quality management piece, which is baked in native part of the platform, is something you're using, I understand, at this stage. Can you tell us a bit about how you're using that, which bits you like about it, and what are the benefits you're getting from it?
Absolutely. So in the past, the quality monitoring was managed outside of the telephony platform. It was all manual, sitting in one of the drives on a Word docker. We had all spreadsheets where we had, tick boxes and very clunky. So we really wanted, as I said, 5 years ago, when we thought about bringing in a telephony platform, we were thinking about, okay, well, we need to integrate all of this together. So we did have the plan of bringing in quality management tool, workforce management tool, all of that into the one platform. And we were quite lucky to have that implemented about November, end of November, December is when, sorry, I do apologize. November is when we implemented workforce planning. In January, we implemented the quality management tool. And it's it's just beautiful. It's so easy, you know, all our forms for the quality management, when we mark the quality score, it's actually embedded in the tool. So we can create the form. So as we get new teams, and if we get business units within the contact center that's performing a certain role, which requires a different form of quality monitoring, we can actually create new quality monitoring forms in that tool. We do get calls picked up automatically by the system for quality monitoring. And once the call quality is marked by the QA, and we submit it, the agent actually gets a notification that a quality call has been marked. They can actually go open the quality score marking and they can actually review that themselves. They can reach out to their leader if they're not happy with this marking, or if they think that, you know, we need to review it, that option is available. So I think it's become very, very easy. It's instantaneous. Again, you know, it's all stored in the one platform. So it makes reporting easy as well. And as we are a superannuation fund, we have to be compliant. We have to have certain compliance calls marked. I think it makes it very easy for us to manage that now. And again, we're getting great feedback from our consultants as well, because they get instant reports.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the depth of capability in that component is really really quite powerful. Every time I see it, it continues to amaze me. It's sort of so baked in there, and I'm going to touch on that in the future stuff as well. Some things that are coming that you haven't heard about before, Nisha, I don't think. So I'll share that with the broader team as we get towards the end, and particularly in the context of, you know, given the economic headwinds we're facing and financial hardship and regulations as it matures in financial services around that topic. But I'm not going to spoil my own thunder in that regard. You've touched on the CRM integrations and the fully embedded component of that. Post-call survey is another interesting one. You have mentioned it a couple of times in here, and one of the things, much like when you're looking at quality management, having, you know, a fully integrated and fully a solution that has all of these components baked into the core of it, where you have, okay, well, this is I don't have to go looking for a call to quality monitor. I also, when you find a call you want to quality monitor, you can then also see what the post-call survey result is of that call as well. So you say, okay, show me the calls where, you know, the customer said that was terrible, and use the quality manage those as well. So those two are neatly integrated, and perhaps that's a good segue just to talk about what you're doing with that post-call survey. Would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So we always wanted to measure customer satisfaction, first call resolution, and NPS scoring for the voice channel. We always wanted to. And the telephony platform, NICE, actually allowed us to do that. And at the time of build, we made it very clear that we wanted it to be offered at the end of the call. And we wanted the ability to turn it on and turn it off. So we actually turn it off and turn it on when we think it's appropriate. So we do it 5 days in a month. Members actually get the option of, they're asked to provide answers to 3 questions. The first one is a first call resolution question. The second one is the question around the consultant, customer satisfaction. And the third question is NPS scoring. The way we have configured it is that if a member gives a low score on a particular call, the team leaders actually get alerted. We actually receive an email to say a low score has been received. So as soon as we get that message, we actually go back and listen to the call. If there is coaching feedback that needs to be provided to the consultant, we action that. We also make outbound call to the member, and we remediate if there needs to be a remediation there. Honestly, I must also say that sometimes members do make a mistake. Instead of pushing 10, they push 0, and we know that that's an error. And sometimes I've noticed that, and because I've made these outbound calls to members, right? Sometimes members are a little bit, oh, I didn't think you were going to call me. But trust me, a couple of times we've made these outbound calls where we've gotten a low score, and we've actually got feedback from our members, some valuable feedback, and we've actually been able to change our processes to make it better for our members. There have been a couple of instances. So I'm really passionate about post-call surveys. I really love to see the results. I actually play. So what happens is in the end of the post-call survey, we do have an option where members can actually leave feedback. So sometimes members are very sweet. They leave amazing feedback for our consultants. I sometimes like to play those messages back to the consultants as well. We do that sometimes in the team meeting, and it's great motivational piece, for the consultants. They're really happy to hear that what members have to say about them. So I really love it. It's a great part of the tool that we have.
It's an interesting topic here, and Stephanie, I think we were sort of answering your questions. We'll summarize it in a few moments. We come back to the features and functions, because the other one that you have at the moment, you're not using it to its full potential, is, I guess, the speech analytics component. Again, something that's baked into the platform that's available for organizations. And this is a topic which historically was always, it would have been out of reach for an organization like Brighter Super. Speech analytics was the preserve of your large banks, your telcos, your large insurers, etc., where the projects were a huge lift, required a huge amount of server hardware and technology to be implemented. Then you have to run it for several months to work out whether you actually were going to find some little golden nugget of information going on in the organization as it is. But interestingly, one of the things with speech analytics, to your point a moment ago, is customer feedback is really important. But if the speech analytics can tell you what it is, sometimes you get this this difference. Okay, well, speech analytics said that was awesome, we nailed that, and the customer went, no, you didn't. So having that capability in a single environment as well, so you see the interaction in a single panel, goes, customer said this, feedback said, the speech analytics said that, problem. So perhaps tell us about how are you using the speech analytics, it's known as interaction analytics, inside of CXone at the moment, and what would you like to start using it for?
Look, I'd like to use it a lot more than what I am now. So I'm just using the very basic functionality, whereby we're trying to add more words to it, because as you would know, that piece is an ever evolving piece. It's not set and forget. Because the organization is going through so much change, we need to be able to constantly listening to calls, to be able to add those keywords into the system, so that from there we can actually get the system to run through some analytics and display us as to what is actually happening, what are the sentiments coming through. But right now, we look at the very basics. So when we look through the analytics, we can actually see, has there been any negative calls? And if yes, we can actually differentiate between, was it negative from the member's perspective, or was it negative from the agent's perspective? Has there been any positive calls? From what part, from what side? So we do look a lot of that at the moment, but it's definitely a piece that Anthony, we are as a leadership team very strongly working towards, because once we stabilize as a contact center, we need to make sure that we're using that tool to the best of our ability.
I'm going to circle back to this one in a few moments, actually, as well, in the context of sorts of things you can do, particularly in areas of auto discovery and what's called our I haven't mentioned AI yet. It wouldn't be right if I didn't mention AI on the call. We have AI sentiment models that can be integrated with those components and the feedback as well. But skipping on from that for the moment, I'll circle back on that one. The final, I guess, module that I wanted to talk to, and then we'll summarize for Stephanie's question, was the workforce management piece as well. Now, you mentioned earlier on you were doing your quality monitoring and your customer coaching, your agent coaching sessions via manual forms. What were you doing for workforce management, and how does that look now?
I'll say I love worksheets. I'm a spreadsheets. I must say that, because last time I think I got into trouble when I said I was using boring spreadsheets to do workforce planning. Look, that's exactly what I was doing, and I think a lot of the smaller contact centers use spreadsheets, and it's okay to use spreadsheets. It's just, there's no harm in that. However, because we went from an 11-seater to now just under 90 agents, it was very difficult to manage workforce planning on a spreadsheet, especially when we have got staggering shifts, because we are open from 8 in the morning to 5:30 in the evening, and we work 7.5-hour shifts. We also have some part-timers in the team as well. And we've got some members in the team who have been working in the organization for a very long time, hence they've got some preferred shift start timings as well. So managing all of that on a spreadsheet, and also keeping up with the forecasted call volumes was becoming quite challenging for us as an organization. And also, because we went through merger and acquisition, we had at a given time, multiple IVRs. So we couldn't kind of predict how many calls we were going to get, because we hadn't gone through a merger in the past and an acquisition in the past. So it was very difficult to have that forecasting ready as well. So I guess when we implemented workforce planning tool going back in November last year, again, we wanted to start off with very basic. Trust me, it's made our job so much easier. We do forecast, based on the available data. The best thing was, because we were already on the CXone platform, we already had all the data. And if we did not, there is also an option to import data from other systems as well to do the forecasting. So right now, job's very easy. We do forecasting and scheduling directly through the tool. We do have the flexibility of, doing rotations. The part-timers, they are automatically coded in the back end. If there's somebody who likes a preferred shift, they're all grouped together. So we can just do the settings and forget about it, because when the scheduling is done, the system automatically picks it up. It also, it's so easy to manage breaks and lunches and any off the phone training, coaching, one-on-one meetings, extremely easy to manage all of that. So life's become a lot more easier post implementation of workforce planning. Also, it's not just that. We do have an intraday manager, which I really like to view all the time. The intraday manager actually displays the call volumes we receive every 15 minutes. So it's nice to see, and it does a reforecasting as well in real time. It's just amazing to see, okay, this is what we're anticipating. So it helps in real-time queue management as well.
Fabulous. And do you have a dedicated workforce management team looking after this, or how are you looking after it, given the growth you've had?
Yes. So right now, I look after the workforce planning mostly. The team leaders have some capability, for example, entering people who have called in unwell, making a note of unplanned leave or annual leave, etc. Moving around breaks, etc. The team leaders can do. But as far as forecasting and scheduling is concerned, it's currently managed by myself. But I do get a lot of input from my leader, the head of contact center. So I work very closely with Mick, who is very good with numbers. I tell him he can actually do the forecasting and scheduling without the tool, but he's pretty good with numbers. So I really work very closely with him to get that done.
Fabulous. Thanks, Nisha. So I guess just to summarize back to Stephanie's question, which was around which modules have been implemented in what order, and appreciating some of that was obviously organizational size based. So if I were to recap from obviously the things you did right from the get-go with the CRM integration, you got the benefits of the reporting, and other elements. And along the journey, you've then implemented quality management, post-call survey, speech analytics, workforce management. You actually have outbound too, but do you think there's a particular order that you would recommend or advise people to? Which things have you got the most bang for buck, for want of a better word, out of those areas?
Was it a question for Melina or myself?
I can answer. Oh, I can help you. I can help you if you like, Nisha. It's up to you.
No, look, I feel like the order that we went with is we went with the voice channel, and in voice channel we went with integration into CRM. Post-call survey was important, so that was our first step. From there, we did testing around email, we did testing around web chat. We also had the outbound dialer post that, but from a functionality perspective, that's what we went ahead with. And then we had a merger. So when we had a merger, so we'll talk a little bit about this. So when Energy Super and LGI Super merged to become one fund, which is Brighter Super, Energy Super was on a different, obviously being a different fund, they were on a different platform. So the first thing that we did was we actually brought them into the RingCentral platform or CXone platform. Once we did that, they actually worked independently in that platform for a period of time. And then afterwards, when we were ready, when the merger was, when the migration, the admin migration was just about to go ahead, and when the day we knew that the IVRs had to be pushed together, that is the day we actually brought them on into the Brighter Super world. So the transition was quite easy. So until the time that they were operating silo, they were using the Agent Max to actually answer phone calls. As soon as they moved on to the Brighter Super team, they started handling phone calls through the RingCentral Salesforce agent within Salesforce. So the transition was quite easy. The same thing happened when Brighter Super actually purchased Suncorp superannuation. We actually ensured that Suncorp contact center was actually moved onto the RingCentral platform first. And they again stayed silo for a certain period of time. And then when we knew we were comfortable, we brought them into the Brighter Super world. So it's in different transition. And whilst we were doing this, we also implemented workforce planning tool. Then we implemented the quality management tool, and we then implemented the interactive analytics as well. Yeah.
Just briefly, there was a question on this topic from John in the chat, and I've answered it, and now I'm questioning my answer briefly. So it was around the way you manage planned and unplanned leave inside the organization, and I went straight to solution mode, as the techie in the audience would do. In that, sometimes when people are asking that question, they're focused on integration to HR and payroll systems in particular, which I made the assumption, apology, was the assumption that you're not doing at this stage, because those payroll integrations can be highly complex and requires careful planning. But in terms of the way you handle planned and unplanned leave from a workforce planning, do you want to make a comment briefly on that, just so I address that first part of it rather than the techie part of it?
Sure. So our workforce planning doesn't integrate with our payroll system at all. So we just use that for scheduling. So we know that that particular person is not going to be in today. So we know how many staff we've got left with, and it helps us to kind of identify, okay, we're not going to meet grade of service today because we don't have that many people on board. As far as managing our leave is concerned, then from there on, we just enter it outside directly through the payroll system, the actual leave. So there would be a record in the workforce management tool that a particular consultant was away for that particular day.
So you would add the planned leave into the schedule when you're doing the forecasting, and unplanned leave you would add into there on the day, and you do it separately in the payroll system.
That's correct.
Perfect. That's what I assumed. It's just not quite what I said in my response. Apologies, John. Hopefully that clears things up for you as well. And likewise with your question, Stephanie, around the modules. Obviously, you've done a huge amount there. Now, we touched earlier on, Nisha, about the sorts of things that you're starting to look at, and you mentioned about you bringing on email, but you've also talked in the past about web chat. And I think we've seen this. Organizations that have been on the journey that you've been on over the last couple of years, they went, oh, just keep the lights on initially, and then only now they're starting to revisit and go, we have this platform, we're happy with it, we're really comfortable with it, we're getting lots of value out of it from QM and analytics. Like, how else can we integrate our customers' journeys and our digital journeys into this solution as well? So do you want to tell us a little bit about that side?
Absolutely. Yeah. So right now we are not offering web chat as a channel of communication for our members. We will in the future at some point in time, but I'm not sure when. But if and when that was to happen, we're very comfortable because we've tested it in the RingCentral CXone platform. The testing is completed. As an organization, when we are ready, when we know that we have got the resources, and when we know we are good to go, that's the day when we'll push the button. So I was part of the testing of web chat. It's very easy to use again. And I think I personally feel if we demonstrate that to my team at the moment, they will all want to go on the web chat channel because it's that easy to use. I personally feel that. Yeah, that's where we are at the moment. But for our organization, typically, it was really important, as you said, Anthony, to ensure that the platform is stable and ensure that we are getting the maximum value of what we have, and then move on to offer other channels, especially when organizations going through merger and acquisitions and huge change. I think the contact center has to be stable because we need to be there to be able to help our members where possible.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Nisha. So it's really, really good insights, I think, from there. I'm just sort of looking at the time ticking away on us a little bit. I mentioned earlier on I wanted to circle back on the speech analytics component, and particularly in light of the economic headwinds we're having, where there's a lot of focus, and some organizations in New Zealand and the UK, for example, have been doing a lot more around the regulation of how we manage and deal with customers that are in situations of financial hardship. And one of the things that we have as part of the speech analytics solution is a whole series of what's called AI models, for want of a better word. So we've got, through years and years and years of experience in this, we've used machine learning and artificial intelligence to identify calls where financial hardship is being discussed, where even agent behaviors like effective questioning and showing empathy and speech cadence, all of these things are available. And one of the things we can do is actually present that in real time to the agent and say, you know what, perhaps this customer's experiencing financial hardship, or your effective questioning is not awesome, slow down, or ask more questions. Or there's a whole series of little speech dials, which I think can probably be a little bit of a high cognitive load for agents. We talk a lot about agent experience over the years, but that information is also available to supervisors, so they can see what's going on. Are there any calls which are not looking great right now? What do we want to do about them in real time, rather than waiting for the post-call survey and remediation? But also, when looking at financial hardship, warning signals, perhaps separation from partner, those sorts of things, the loss of jobs. To be able to use that as part of your quality management process. Say, okay, well, show me interactions where a customer perhaps has showed signs of financial hardship, and then the quality monitoring rule. I think it was developed by an organisation in the UK. It's called Texas, which is a framework for managing those sorts of situations. And we've set it up in our demo environment to create a Texas questioning framework around, did the agent advise the customer about the financial debt and helpline numbers, these sorts of things. So this is how we're starting to see the artificial intelligence being applied in real time to those speech analytics to identify not just calls you might want to listen to, but other more pertinent situations, both in real time and historical as well. I think that's something that I see a lot of value in for a lot of organizations in the financial services industry at this time. Now, Melina, just before we sort of wrap out, are there any other things that you've been working on with Brighter Super in terms of things that are on the near-term roadmap that you might want to touch on?
I think Nisha's done very well. I think the next thing on our adventure is obviously looking at adding additional channels with SMS and email and chat, etc., and social media as well, possibly moving forward, which is sort of the next thing. I think this week was a big week for Brighter Super in regards to transforming and making all the changes they needed to do for the 3 different entities to come into the one with Brighter Super. So I think it's a sigh of relief on her face if no one could notice. It's been a challenging year. So we're looking forward to the months ahead, which will also involve around performance management. As mentioned by Nisha, we have got post-call surveys in place, which we've had since day one, which allows at the end of the call to go and have ask a few questions, which Nisha covered off earlier in this session. Moving forward, we're looking at other ways in which we can also track customer satisfaction, etc., across the contact centre, the CXone, as well as that RingCentral back office platform, the UCAS platform as well. So then the other thing I think we need to address is more questions, I think, for you, Nisha. In regards to your experience, how long would you suggest allowing to bed down each different module or function, and how long did it take for your agents to feel comfortable with the new features?
That's a good question. Now, I guess every organization would be different in terms of what you want to go ahead with. I guess if someone wanted to go ahead with all bells and whistles, I guess that wouldn't be a problem as long as they know that they've got enough resourcing and they've done all the planning. What's worked for us is to start very basic. So we knew that we just wanted to have just the very basic and then build from there. The benefit of that is it's easier to stabilize. It's not overwhelming. You're only focusing on the one little implementation process, and then have everything else lined up and have a deadline of when you want the future modules to be implemented. But having said that, and as far as agents are concerned, and I do ask this question myself, is this real? Because when we transitioned our consultants from the previous telephony platform to the RingCentral platform. The only change that they had to get adjusted with is they didn't have to use a hard phone, which was very, very difficult for them because they're so used to punching the numbers on the hard phone. They didn't have to do that anymore. So that was the, the change that they had to deal with. Everything else was pretty easy transition because, as Melina said, we had agent video recordings or training videos done up specifically for our platform, and it wasn't a generic one, it was specifically for our platform. Our internal IT team, we worked very closely as well. Beatrix, who is our technical BA, she worked very closely with Melina and her team to ensure that the integration was working well. She also helped me with with the testing and the build as well, which meant that we were really in the detail of what was going on, which meant that as a leader, as a people leader, it was easy for me to kind of pass that knowledge on to the consultants because I knew why, I knew why it was working in a certain way. So I knew the ins and outs. So I think we were able to get screenshots and train the consultants. It was pretty easy transition. But answering your question, I guess it depends upon how big your organization is, how many resources you've got to actually dedicate to this particular project. Do you have what does 6 to 12 months look like for your organization? Do you have any major changes coming up that you need to think about before you implement something? Because whatever you're implementing, we need to think about how that's going to impact 12 months down the track.
It's a great answer.
With that, sorry, I was just going to ask, did you find, again, you roll out something big and new and transformational like you've done, people then become more familiar with it, right? So that change management function and feature means the next time something that's similar and familiar, it actually takes less time. The next time it is, you've almost got this proven case where people go, well, actually, I love this. What was I afraid of? Suddenly I've got at my fingertips the things that help me do my job better. So actually the next change, you're actually requiring less time and less downtime with your systems, less change resistance, etc., with your people. So would you have seen through your journey some greater levels of, I guess, acceptance and, getting to a point where they're saying, well, what's next? Because they've seen and had such faith in the system as you've gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why I say that, Fran, I'll give you an example. For example, workforce planning tool, right? The consultants right now, they can actually, when they're logged in to the RingCentral Salesforce agent, when they're in the available status to take a phone call, in there, they can actually see if there are any calls in queue. They can actually check their performance, their agent performance. They can actually check their schedule as well in the RingCentral phone app within Salesforce. Previously, they had to go to a spreadsheet or outside of Salesforce. So because we have been using RingCentral Salesforce for the last 3 years, when we implemented workforce planning tool last year in November, it was easy transition for them, right? So if they wanted to check the schedule, they had to just click the tab inside the app. So what you said is absolutely correct. Now, any changes or any add-ons that we would do to the CXone platform, the transition and the change management required will reduce considerably as we go. Similarly with the QA tool, previously they would get an email with their feedback, but now they have to just click on the My Zone in their CXone platform and it's right there. So all they have to go is to the My Zone within the platform. So absolutely correct. Yes, the transition is very, very easy when we add modules on. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm really mindful of time, but obviously we've had some great interaction and lots of questions there from people on the session today. I know we will send out a link to the recording, but Melina and Anthony will obviously put your names out there for any specific questions or any follow-up questions that people would like to have answered. There's obviously, these guys know this world inside out, but equally you've got a whole lot of experience with different organisations with different sizes and the rest of it that are at different stages of that transformation journey. And actually the insights you can get, you know, Nisha, hearing you today, the insights for others that they can gain from what you've actually been through and see themselves in that, it's actually, you know, gold. It's really hard to replace that. So thank you, Nisha, for your insights and for sharing the story of Brighter Super. Obviously, it's not over yet, and we can't wait to hear what those next stages are. Little birdie told me you took 1,500 calls yesterday, which let's imagine some years ago when you had 12 people in your contact centre, you would never have thought that possible. So well done to Brighter Super. And thank you so much to Anthony and Melina. Your expertise and knowledge in these on these sessions is, you know, fantastic and really appreciated. I know everybody's really enjoyed it. So thanks again, everybody. And we'll see you all next time.
Thank you very much, Fran. Thank you very much, Nisha.
Everybody, thank you.